Hi there, welcome to Nepi Invest. In March 2023, I did an introduction video on Halo Food Company. And the main reason I did that introduction video was simply because of one of their Appendix 4Cs, which I'll show you in the next slide. Now, this is not the sort of company I'm going to be following closely, simply because of their business model and what they're selling. So over the past 5 months, I have not been following this company at all. Yet over the past 5 months, a lot has been going on with Halo Food Company. And what's been going on with this company is not good news for shareholders. And lo and behold, on the 25th of August, the company has gone into voluntary administration. So I thought I'd do a video on that and just see if we can learn anything from Halo Food Company's predicament, because it's a little bit of a predicament. They can't get any funding. They do have a fair bit of debt. And in fact, when I did a bit of research on this company for that video 5 months ago, the main red flag I saw in Halo Food Company was their debt. And this is the main reason I try to stick away from investing in these type of companies, these small cap companies. In fact, this is a micro cap company that do have a fair bit of debt. So let's get into looking at Halo Food Company's voluntary administration. The main catalyst for me doing that introduction video on Halo Food Company was this particular Appendix 4C. The company release for the December quarter, so they would have released this in January of 2023. And actually on the surface, this looks pretty good in the one quarter. $24.2 million of receipts, and the company was actually operating cash flow positive by $1.4 million. Now, for the first 9 months of the year, even though they did generate $66.2 million of receipts, they were actually operating cash flow negative by $4 million. They had enough cash on hand, $4.3 million of cash. But again, the main red flag I had in regards to this company was their debt. And their debt was $15.3 million. Now, the markup cap of this company at this point in time, when I did that video back in March, I think it would have been around about $7 million. So this company had twice as much debt as the company was valued. So the enterprise value of Halo Food Company back here was around about $18 to $20 million. So whenever I look at Section 7 in the Appendix 4C and I see a fair bit of debt, I won't say I become nervous, but I'm much more wary about that company. Back in February 2022, Halo Food Company announced a transformational and highly accretive acquisition of a company called The Healthy Mummy, which I've never heard of. Even though they have announced some Healthy Mummy products would be in Coles and Woolworths, I've not seen any Healthy Mummy products at all. But the acquisition price for Healthy Mummy was up there. In fact, it was for $17 million plus an earn out. Now, that earn out was based off the financial performance of the company, which could be as high as about $4 or $5 million. Yeah, $5 million earn out, which is subject to revenue and EBITDA performance milestones. They also mentioned here that the Healthy Mummy recorded revenue of $21 million and normalized EBITDA of $4 million. So they said highly accretive deal. So on the face of it, this looks like a really good deal for Halo Food Company. So the reason I'm talking about this acquisition is because even though I haven't been following this company all too closely, I did have a look at the announcements this company has been releasing the past few months just to see if there's any interesting things in there. And there was a really interesting announcement this company released just 2 weeks ago. And I'll talk about that announcement in two sides. But before we get to that announcement, the company also released something fairly important in May of this year. And Halo Food Company, just after I did that introduction video, announced they were doing or conducting a strategic review. They actually mentioned here that on the 30th of March 2023, so that's just after I did the video, the board commenced a strategic review into its 100% owned subsidiary, The Healthy Mummy. So this point of time, I would be suggesting they were concerned about the performance of The Healthy Mummy and were probably thinking they spent way too much on that acquisition. And they also mentioned here and has subsequently expanded review to full operations and divisions of Halo. As such, Modus, which is a company conducting the strategic review, is seeking expressions of interest from parties for the company as a whole or the individual business units of Halo, which include the Healthy Mummy. As part of the initial strategic review process, the board has formed an opinion, this is just an opinion, that the value of the underlying business units may be worth substantially more than the applied values based on the current listed market value of the company. I've seen those sort of opinions from a lot of board members of a lot of companies on the ASX over the past few years. Our company is worth way more than what the market thinks. No, the market is always right. Now, that's not absolutely true, but I do think a lot of board members of companies have an inflated opinion of the company they are on board of. And more than likely, that is particularly true of Halo Food Company's board at this point in time. And here is that really interesting announcement just 2 weeks ago, a divestment of the Healthy Mummy. So they bought the Healthy Mummy for at least $17 million plus a potential $5 million of earnouts, depending on revenue and EBITDA. More likely, they weren't going to achieve those earnouts. So $17 million they paid for Healthy Mummy. Healthy Mummy, yeah. And they sold Healthy Mummy on the 11th of August for a total of $588,000. Now, may not be as simple as that because there's also some other points in this divestment. Mosh, who bought Healthy Mummy to assume all liabilities of the Healthy Mummy or Healthy Mummy employees to remain with the Healthy Mummy entities. There are no conditions precedent or subsequent to the transaction. And Halo and Mosh have entered into an arm's length and exclusive manufacturing agreement for the future production of the Healthy Mummy powders, including smoothies and weight loss shakes, for an initial term of 18 months. Now, we don't know the value of some of these points, but again, purchase or the divestment received of Healthy Mummy was $588,000 compared to what they paid, $17 million. So this was only 18 months ago that they bought the Healthy Mummy, and 18 months later, they're selling it for $588,000. I can understand, and in fact, I did go to Hot Copper forums just to see what the shareholders were thinking during this time period, and I have not seen such a dejected, such a shareholder base who is has so much hatred of the management of a company, and you can understand why. When the company's management buys something for $17 million and then 18 months later sell it for $588,000. And then what happens 2 weeks later after this divestment of the Healthy Mummy? Well, they go into voluntary administration. And here is that important voluntary administration announcement, not from the company. I believe this would be from the administrators or receivers and managers. And you can sort of notice that because this has a completely different look than previous announcements from the company. More marketing put into those announcements. And if this was released from or by the administrators or receivers and managers, they don't care about marketing. They just want to get the information to the market. So this is an announcement in regards to appointment of voluntary administrators and receivers and managers. The first bit of announcement talks about how the board went through or started a strategic review process to pursue unlocking value through divestment, mergers and acquisitions, and other opportunities. Unfortunately, the process has not worked. It has not delivered to expectations, and financial support to the company has been withdrawn, necessitating the board's decision to enter voluntary administration. Now, this does not mean it's the end of Halo Food, but it does mean more than likely current shareholders, if it's not the end of the company, will be highly diluted. There's also the possibility that Halo Food, particularly if the administrators and receivers decide to divest a Healthy Mummy, or not the Healthy Mummy anymore, but other parts of the business, and then we just have a shell. That used to be Halo Food, and then there's a reverse takeover of the shell, and maybe the reverse takeover will be a lithium company. And those shareholders of Halo Food now own a lithium company, but they're going to be highly diluted. So if they have $1,000 worth of shares, maybe they come back with only $50 worth of shares when the whole process comes to an end. And more likely, that process might be a few years. This could be the end of Halo Foods. It may not be, but I wouldn't completely despair if I was a Halo Foods shareholder, because you still might have something in a few years' time. And this sort of thing happens all the time on the ASX. It happens all the time in life. Businesses or running businesses is a hard thing, particularly running a successful business and growing that business over a long period of time. And Halo Food is one of those companies that has not made it in the end. And last thing I will look at is a chart for Halo Food Company. Now, this goes back to when the company listed on the ASX back in 2018. It's only about 5 years ago. But back then, they were known as Ketone Dairy. Then they changed the name, which is always a red flag, in my opinion. When a company changes the name, that's a bad look. Not always, but a lot of times it is bad look. And this chart is just a nasty chart. It's an awful chart. Share price has dropped from a high of 85 cents in August 2018 all the way down to 0.7 cents. So this has been a disastrous ride for shareholders who have held on to their shares all through this 5-year period. You want to see the chart do the exact opposite. Go from the bottom left to the top right, not from the top left to the bottom right. So a nasty, ugly looking chart. No reason to be holding any companies that have charts like this. And that's all I have for this video on Halo Food Company's administration. If you are a shareholder of this company, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this management, because again, I went to HotCopper and the vitriol I saw and read in regards to Halo Food Company's management was pretty extreme, even for HotCopper. Anyway, I don't really go to HotCopper all that often. Sometimes I just like to look at shareholder sentiment, and that's the main use of HotCopper, in my opinion. Anyway, so if you are a shareholder of this company, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Otherwise, I am not a financial advisor. If you do need financial advice, make sure you seek out someone who is qualified and can speak to your own financial needs. That's it for this video. Have a good day. Bye.